Okay, so to clarify, you got 3 layers of the geosphere: the core, which is the center, the mantle, and the crust. This is the composition of any of those layers: iron, oxygen, magnesium, and silicon. The core, center, the mantle, magma, and middle, and the crust is the outermost layer, and it's made up of tectonic plates. If ever you see this word lithosphere, it's basically referencing the upper mantle and the crust. And in the upper mantle and crust, which all of this would be considered lithosphere, which is the main focus of environmental science where most activity happens. And that's because the magma in the mantle rises up and then it flows across a zone called the asthenosphere, which is like a river of magma flowing. That, and now I'm going to explain this here, right here. That magma, when it rises and flows across the asthenosphere, as it spreads across, it cools down and it hardens, and this applies pressure to the plates, which causes the shifts to happen. Okay, so the mantle has the magma rises, spreads across this river known as the asthenosphere, and then as the magma starts to harden, it puts pressure on the crust and causes the plates to shift. I put this slide here. I should have probably put it first, but keep in mind that 70% of Earth is oceans and crust. Obviously, we have oceanic crust and continental crust, which would make up mountains and other lands without water. Now, how do the plates shift? There's 3 ways plates shift: transform, convergent, divergent. When plates shift in opposite but parallel directions, which is transform faults, there's no volcanic activity. They're the least damaging. All three of these cause earthquakes. So tectonic plates, any shift will lead to earthquakes. This would be the least damaging, and this one would have no volcanic activity. When you have convergent boundaries, the plates come together or crash together, and those lead to subduction zones or trenches. When plates pull apart or go in opposite directions, it's divergent. Those lead to oceanic and ridges. Convergent and divergent lead to volcanoes, and they're obviously more damaging in terms of earthquakes, but you have to know that coming together or convergent is subduction zones and trenches. Pulling apart or divergent is oceanic ridges and peaks. I'm going to show you, I'm going to jump over here and tectonic plates shifting. Let me look at an image. I asked you some questions in the review, but I want you to know that on a map, let me see if I can find one. I can ask you a question like this. So if you see plates pulling apart, that would be, and there was like, let's say a letter A here, and I would ask what can happen in area A? Well, you know those are divergent plates because they're pulling apart, and when they pull apart, they can form ridges. Now, if you see an arrow like this alone, that's still pulling apart from here, okay? This one is bringing in, so this would be an example of convergent, and this would be an example of divergent. So keep that in mind. Transform faults, you would see the arrows like literally together in opposite but parallel directions, which I'm going to show you real quick. So here's another picture. You could see here, this would be my sample of transform faults. Convergent, divergent, okay? Those are things you're looking for. And you have to be able to know that. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to give you a whole map with all of these. I'll put one convergent, one divergent, one transform, and you have to answer the question based on that. That's what you're going to see on the test. All right, moving on. So what happens when these plates shift? Well, like I told you when we did the birth of Earth, all land formation can happen when the plates shift. And I want you to know that it is known that all continents used to be one big supercontinent called Pangaea. And because of the continuous movement of the plates in the crust, the continents have shifted. And they know this because if you put them back together, they fit like a perfect puzzle. But land formations are a result of shifting of plates. Volcanoes are a result of shifting of plates. Magma rises, flows through the asthenosphere, puts pressure on the plates, and when you have any kind of shift like convergent or divergent, volcanoes can erupt and lava will flow onto the surface. Earthquakes occur due to all shifts, and you have to know that they are measured by they're measured 10 times like they're measured by the Richter scale, and they're 10 times greater. Each number would be 10 times greater. Tsunamis are a result of shifting of plates as well. What they are is basically a underground earthquake, and they cause a huge tidal wave because the seafloor drops or rises with some kind of plate shift, and the wave pours across land.